Well, it's Monday, so that means it's Q&A time here on OTRS Central. If you're finding yourself having trouble getting excited and getting amped up for SummerSlam 2014, make sure you do one thing for me. Check out the SummerSlam review series that is underway on this channel. I believe today I uploaded SummerSlam 2003 review. So getting close to the end of the series already, and it's helping at least to get me a little more excited about it. And every time I do one of these retro review series, it always seems to do that. So let's get started with this Q&A, though, most importantly of all. Thanks to you guys that submitted your questions on Twitter. At Danny Crew asks, who would have had more success in the Attitude Era if they stuck around, Bret or Shawn? I think both would have been very successful in the Attitude Era. Shawn definitely fit the personality of the creative direction of the time. He was one of the early key cogs in making the Attitude Era start to go with his leadership of DX and some of the stuff they were doing for the WWF. But I also think Bret would have worked very well too as being kind of that square peg in a round hole, being the guy that could get the best matches out of people, being that super serious guy that just seems like he totally does not fit in the era at all. Man, he could have had a huge time there too. At D_Rizzle asked, which Money in the Bank winner at WrestleMania was the least deserving and who was the most deserving? To me, the Money in the Bank winner that was least deserving was easily Jack fucking Swagger. That was so stupid and so bad on so many different levels, and the WWE paid the price for it as soon as came his time to actually win the Money in the Bank match. He's standing up there on top of the ladder, and it takes him like 2 minutes to unhook the fucking briefcase. I mean, I almost was sitting there, and it almost got to the point like, if this is the guy that you're going to have win, then after a minute, if he can't get it done, then maybe it's time to call an audible and shake shit up or reset, try to do something. It was bad. And his title reign sucked, and he sucked, and frankly, I still think he sucks. But at that time, he was easily the least deserving. I could have fucked with you and said CM Punk in 2008, but no. At least he figured out how to unhook the goddamn briefcase. Most deserving would have either been Edge in 2005 or RVD in 2006. Derek Williams 4 asked, how did you feel when Vince McMahon became ECW champion? I vomited in my mouth. It was disgusting. Because it really let me know what Vince had in mind for ECW. They'd done the one-night stand shows, released DVDs and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, they're just sitting there using the ECW name because they own it. They might as well try and make some money off of it, and they're going to WWE it up, and they're going to ruin it, and that's exactly what they did, and that's exactly what that epitomizes and crystallizes to me. Matt Meffe2 asks, what are your thoughts on the curtain call incident and the criticism it received by the WWE and some of its fans? I think it's stupid. I think it's ridiculous and very typical of the wrestling business. When you go to a play, let's say, and you've got people portraying good characters and bad characters, yet at the end, they're out there after the play is over, they come out and they take a bow and the crowd applauds for them. Maybe they shake hands, they come out and get a curtain call. And that's okay. In movies, you sometimes will see in the end credits people playing bad guys. You showing bloopers of them. Good guys and bad guys talking to each other. It's just typical of the wrestling business being out of touch. And it's the fact is Vince several years before that had flat out admitted that professional wrestling was fake. It was scripted. It was predetermined entertainment. People have known this shit since the freaking 30s. So this wasn't new. Broke a bunch of wrestling rules. Well, maybe they needed to be broken because they were unwritten rules, just like in baseball. And those baseball unwritten rules are fucking stupid. And some of the ones in professional wrestling are fucking stupid. So I don't see why they felt the need to do the curtain call. I think it was kind of a way where the clique was just saying, "Yeah, we run this show and we could do whatever the fuck we want." But other than that, yeah, I think the criticism was pretty stupid. At ZachPack5150, do you think WWE will change the way Cena is booked if he stopped getting crowd reactions? No, because if people are still showing up to the events, if people are still buying his merch, and people are still watching his segments, who cares if he gets a crowd reaction or not? They're still making money off of him. At least the WWE feels that way. So until people stopped watching his segments, stop buying his merch, and stop going to the events that he's headlining or main eventing, nothing's going to change, period. At They Call Me BK, what would you have done with Booker T and DDP during the invasion angle? I definitely would not have had Booker T lose the WCW title to The Rock at SummerSlam 2001, and I most certainly wouldn't have sent DDP after Sarah and, as a consequence, The Undertaker. I would have tried to have saved these guys to make them two of the leaders of the invasion angle and tried to make them serious players, but woulda, coulda, shouldas. Instead, we got the shit that we got. At KCCO underscore UK, could a Cena gimmick where he acts like Superman work? No, because he already does. I mean, it really doesn't work. He already kind of does portray Superman, and it doesn't work. So there you go. At the Mad Stork 83, which undefeated streak, this ought to be good, ended in the worst way possible. Goldberg's, Undertaker's, or Bo Dallas? Look, I'm pissed off about Bo Dallas' streak ending when it did, the way it did, and how it did, but that's not the worst way possible. It comes down to two. It comes down to Goldberg or Undertaker. And Goldberg's was ended in a bad way. And the reason it was so bad in particular was because of the follow-up. It led to the finger poke of doom, and it was just an unmitigated total disaster. But it could have worked if you sat there and did that, and then you actually followed up in 99 by making it about Goldberg going back through Hogan, Hall, and Nash and the NWO and getting his hands back on the belt. You could have drawn some serious money there. Of course, WCW didn't do that because they wanted to let the inmates run the asylum, and certain inmates decided to run the asylum a certain way. But the worst way was The Undertaker. I mean, here's something you've spent over 2 decades on. Here's something that a lot of people, frankly, did never wanted to see end. And then you bring in a Brock Lesnar, who, mind you, again, I remind so many people, is the same guy that left the WWE high and dry in 2004 to go do other things that in part led to guys like Cena and Orton being pounded down your throats as top stars for almost the past decade. The feud was shit. The storyline heading into it was shit. The match was shit. The finish was shit. And 2+ decades is just fucking gone. Worst way possible has to be Undertaker Street. At Madden God 45, what was a bigger mistake? Not doing Hogan Flair at WrestleMania 8 or not doing Cena Taker with the streak on the line? I'll actually go Cena Taker with the streak on the line because I've talked enough in the past about Hogan Flair at WrestleMania 8 and how it should have happened, and there was no excuse, no matter what type of excuse the WWE tries to give for it not happening. There was no excuse for that not to happen. You let ultimately Ted Turner get that big payday for WCW giving that match in '94, but Cena Taker. Here was that match of matches that they could have had at WrestleMania. Easily, instantly, the main event. Easily, instantly, the must-see match because you don't know what the hell is going to happen. I think it was the one match that Taker needed with the streak on the line. I think it's the one match at WrestleMania that, frankly, John Cena needed to have. So that to me was worse, especially because of the era. They needed that type of match here in the PG era, and of course we didn't get it. At J Gore 492, why does TNA feel the need to relive the ECW era? I know it's in New York City right now, but they have put ECW more over than TNA. I think it's one of these things trying to get cheap ratings pops, trying to impress Spike TV, trying to sit there and justify what they're doing. And to be fair, some of these older ECW guys do sometimes bring a short-term ratings pop. It's also that ECW themed pay-per-view in 2010, Hardcore Justice, that I still believe to this day was the most purchased pay-per-view in TNA's history. So sometimes there's something to that. But again, I think it's TNA, instead of doing the necessary work over the years to try and create their own identity, they try to recapture other identities and try to make it their own, and it just doesn't work, and it's a bad thing. At Heel of Boob asks, suppose the Super Bowl, Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and WrestleMania were on the same day and time. What would you watch and why? NBA Finals you could cross off unless my Bulls were playing in it. This WrestleMania or Super Bowl? Super Bowl. Super Bowl is the Super Bowl. WrestleMania I could go back and watch on demand. Super Bowl I'd rather watch live. It's just the way it is. Especially if my Bears somehow magically were in the freaking Super Bowl. Then it's a no-brainer. Even you would even be over. Let's say the Bears were playing in the Super Bowl, the Bulls were playing in Game 7 in the NBA Finals, and WrestleMania was all the same day. WrestleMania would get watched later. The Bulls game would be on a secondary TV, and the Bears game would be on the big screen. Very simple. At Twerk_Master, did you think of Psycho Sid when you saw Paul George's injury? Just a little bit. Paul George's incident is very freaky and very sad. where Psycho Sid's was kind of awesome in the way that you understand that it really represented the end of WCW when you go back and look at it, and you also know the story heading into it. I thought about it just a little bit. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Mark Lioness Jr. closes out this Q&A by asking, who are your 5 greatest IC champions of all time? 5 greatest in any particular order, and again, in any particular order, I would probably go Macho Man Randy Savage. He's got to be on there. Shawn Michaels has got to be on there. Yes. Mr. Perfect's probably got to be on there. Yes. Frankly, I think the Ultimate Warrior's got to be on there. Mm. Some might put Bret on there. Some might put other people on there. And then I have to go Honky Tonk Man. I mean, he was the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in history. A lot of great Intercontinental Champions over the years. Sadly, most of them in the past. But if I had to say, I would say Macho Man, Mr. Perfect, Shawn Michaels, Ultimate Warrior, Honky Tonk Man. Like I said, some might throw a Bret Hart in there. Some might throw other guys in there. And I won't begrudge you for that. But that's kind of who I see as being the 5 best, in my opinion, of all time. But let me know what you think, who are the 5 greatest IC champions of all time, and make sure to keep sending in your questions for the Monday, Wednesday, Friday Q&As. Make sure you check out the SummerSlam review series on this channel, and make sure you stay tuned all week long for more great wrestling-related content from me, the Schleg Daddy, here on OTRS Central.